the parties on this stage unite, it is impossible for the BJP to win an election. And two big steps have been taken in that regard. The first step is a coordination committee and committees under that committee. And the second step is a decision that we will expedite all seat sharing discussions and decisions.
रेजोल्यूशन पे काम करेंगे, हर जगह मीटिंग करेंगे, हर स्टेट कैपिटल में हम जाएंगे।
आज ही तय कर लिया है लोगों ने कि अब तेजी से हम लोग अभी से शुरू कर देंगे। अब कोई ठिकाना नहीं है, चुनाव समय के पहले भी हो सकता है, कोई ठीक नहीं है, इसलिए हम लोगों को भी तो अलर्ट रहना पड़ेगा।
ये जो इंडिया अलायंस है, ये अलायंस कुछ चंद 26, 27, 28 केवल पार्टियों का अलायंस नहीं है। ये इंडिया अलायंस इस देश के 140 करोड़ लोगों का अलायंस है।
हम एक नहीं थे, एक मंच पर एक उम्मीदवार खड़ा नहीं होते थे, उसका खमियाजा देश को भुगतना पड़ा और मोदी काफी इसमें इसका लाभ उन्होंने उठाया।
Hello, welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The government has called a special parliament session for 5 days between the 18th to the 22nd of September. This will be the first special session in 9 years of the Modi government. While there is no official word on the agenda for this session, it is speculated that the government will review its recent achievements, including the G20 Leaders Summit in Delhi and the success of Chandrayaan-3 mission. Also, the agenda could be introduction of the Women's Reservation Bill, Uniform Civil Code and One Nation, One Election Bill, which, as the name suggests, would mean simultaneous state and general elections. The government has formed a committee headed by former President Ramnath Kovind to explore the possibility of One Nation, One Election. The setting up of the panel has led to speculation over the government advancing the next Lok Sabha poll. The opposition too is gearing up to take on the BJP. Top leaders of the opposition alliance, I.N.D.I.A, have gathered in Mumbai to plan for the 2024 Lok Sabha polls. Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Nitish Kumar, Lalu Prasad, Akhilesh Yadav, Uddhav Thackeray, Mamta Banerjee, Arvind Kejriwal among other leaders. The alliance has passed a resolution and formed a coordination committee to fight polls together. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge warned the alliance partners to be prepared for raids and arrests in the coming months, accusing the BJP government of playing vendetta politics. Joining us now are Niti Jain, BJP spokesperson, Sujata Paul of the Congress Party, Akshayk Rout, former Director General of the Election Commission, with us as well. Also, Sanjeev Srivastava, senior journalist. Niti Jain, let me begin by asking you, what is the agenda for the upcoming special session, the first special session of the Modi government in 9 years? Any brief that has been given to BJP leaders on what to expect?
So Parikshit, as much as I'd like to speculate with you, I don't think I'm at the liberty to do that. It is the party workings and the government workings are pretty different. So the protocol that the government works with is not told to the party or the party members in advance. So whatever happens is going to be in the public light whenever it is decided. So for now, I think all we know, as every other citizen of this country knows, there is a special session that has been called. Everything else right now is a speculation, either in the media or by the opposition.
Right. Let me go across to Sanjeev Srivastava right now. Sanjeev Srivastava, what is your sense? Just after, almost 24 hours after calling for this special session, we get this news via sources that a committee has been formed under former President Ramnath Kovind to look at the possibility of one nation, one election. Then immediately there's a meeting between Ramnath Kovind and the BJP President JP Nadda. What do you make of all of this?
Parikshit, good evening and thank you very much for having me on the show. But it's very difficult to really take a second guess or outguess or guess what Mr. Modi and his government can do. They are very good at maintaining secrecy and even better at pulling up a surprise. But yes, this talk about one nation, one election, simultaneous polls has gathered momentum since yesterday's announcement and now after the formation of this committee. But now, can the committee actually take everybody on board? Can it really get its act together in a month's time and go ahead with this? These are all questions which I don't think anyone has an answer to right now. It much will depend whether this government actually wants to go in for a simultaneous election in this round only. And if it happens in this round, when will it be? What will happen to the elections which are slated, 5 state elections which are slated in December? Will there be assemblies in suspended animation? So it's just so much speculation. I think this air will be cleared either by someone in the government uh, or once the deliberations for the special session begins and the business advisory committee really sits. But clearly what they have succeeded in doing is that because there was this India Alliance meeting and so much of narrative would have been hogged by them, so clearly the entire, at least the headlines, the narrative has all shifted to what is this special session all about? So that has become the top news story, and rightfully so. Because the first special session in 9 years. So there's a lot of curiosity. But to be honest, again, I don't know the answer why this session is for.
All right, we will come back to Neeti Jain once again, but let's just go across to our other panelists for the moment. Mr. Rout, if I were to ask you, one nation, one election, holding this immediately after the G20 in October, November or December, how difficult or challenging would this be, considering that there are at least 14 elections from now till 2025, including general elections and state elections. So how realistic is the possibility of having a one nation, one election at this point?
Well, I think it's difficult, but not impossible. I think we are talking about quite a few spaces together. I think the large amount of this debate should rest in the political space, very quickly, and of course, constitutional parliament space, and some amount, definitely, as you are suggesting, in the management space of Election Commission of India. Elections in India have always been a challenge for managers, even in the best of the times. And right from 51, 52, we have seen so many elections till 2019 national election. Every election gives a different type of challenge. And we have been law and order problems, weather-related problems, and problems of constitutional failures. We have all types of problems. And the terrains are always difficult, logistics challenges are heavy. And there has to be a management of distrust in a way, if when the political combatants are very hard and harsh, and no one wants to yield an inch. But the other side, this discussion is not exactly new. A lot of institutions in the past, including ECI and Law Commission, and of course now loudly from the government pulpits, and not long ago from former President Pranab Mukherjee, they have all spoken in favor of citing the merits of one nation, one election. Okay, one nation, one election is in a way, it's not very correct description. We are talking about elections aligned to each other. It's not that voters will go and in the polling booth, they will cast their vote in one ballot box or one EVM. No, the assembly elections will hold its separate machine and the Lok Sabha elections, and the voting will be, the voter will have one outing in that way. And my best guess is that because of the challenges that are being spoken about and a lot of amendments are to take place, statutory steps, constitutional space, and most importantly, consensus among political parties. My best guess is that when it becomes possible, perhaps it will be in phases. There will be a sort of a group of states and center maybe have election together, then another group, because some assemblies will require the elections required to be deferred, which is not easy constitutionally, because assemblies are extended only when the president's rule comes in only when there is a constitutional failure. It may not be exactly the case, so there will be amendments. So this is not going to be easy road. But so far as logistics is concerned, like setting up of polling stations, they are already there. Electoral roll, which is a list of about 950 million voters, they already are there. The electronic voting machine, okay, there has to be more mobilization, but I think the managers will rise up to that. And in terms of deployment of security forces, spreading out election staff, Election Commission has been described by many as the gold standards in election management in the world. So I'm sure if it comes on them, we will somehow manage to do it. If we get more time, preparatory time, the easier it is. Otherwise, if they get a short time, it is more challenging for them. if you allow me, Parikshit,
Right.
if you go, even earlier to Niti Aayog's 2017, when they mentioned that elections are one thing which every citizen in the country everywhere. And before that, the Parliamentary Standing Committee talked about policy paralysis and governance failure because of the MCC coming into force again and again and again. Mind you, Parikshit, and everyone knows that the MCC is more effective in terms of officials, not among political parties. In political parties, there is a criticism that MCC is not being complied fully. But the bureaucrats and the civil servants are very scared that they don't want to go on the wrong side. So there is definitely some amount of government communication. So all these will be handled. And the managers of election, namely led by the Election Commission of India, the state chief electoral officers, district election officers, I'm sure they will rise to the table. But I think that part is still quite a distance.
Okay.
First is political
Mr. Rout,
constitution.
I'm going to come back to you in some time. All right, Mr. Rout, I'm going to come back to you in some time. You made an important point that it is difficult but not impossible to have a one nation, one election, but it will possibly happen in phases. Let me also go across to Sujata Paul of the Congress Party. Sujata Paul, I would like to ask you, what is the Alliance's view, the India Alliance's view on one nation, one election? If such a bill is brought to Parliament, will the opposition be ready to have simultaneous elections in India?
The truth of the matter is, as Mr. Srivastava just mentioned, that this is only because of the India meet that is happening in Maharashtra at the moment. The attention needs to be diverted from there by Mr. Modi and his government because he is rattled. He knows that he is going to fail, and the kind of attention that the alliance has got has troubled them a lot. And in addition to that, if you recall what happened yesterday, when the OCCRP report came out about Mr. Adani and Mr. Rahul Gandhi came all guns blazing against Mr. Modi and his relationship with Mr. Adani, the help that he has lent him. Obviously, there was something that was bound to happen. But look at the way in which the Indian constitution, which the Bharatiya Janata Party and the RSS combined does not believe in, is going to be messed up with. And why do I say that it is going to be messed up? Because here there are at least 5 articles that will need to be amended. One, so are you going to do it without consensus? You can't do it without consensus of all political parties. Now, if you're going to float media trial balloons, it's not going to work. If you're going to force it on various political parties, it's not going to work. And especially in a scenario where there is a trust deficit between the government and the rest of the country. Because the government has made sure that even the people who raise their voices are on the other side, and there is a big gap between them. So when we are talking about agencies, let me please complete. When we are talking about agencies which are being beaconed, and that includes not just the investigative agencies, but even the media and also the parliament. At such a time, if you're going to come up with such a plan, then obviously this is going to be a huge hurdle. Now, there are about 19 lakh or 20 lakh EVM machines. How many would we need if we have a 3-tier election happening together? 3 times. That means 60 lakhs. Will the manufacturers of these machines, which are only 2 companies, be able to do it in this shorter time? One. Second, deployment of central forces all across the country at one particular time. Do you think that's sensible? Does that make sense? It will always, this kind of a decision will always favor the ruling party at the center, and with the trust deficit, this is going to be even more difficult. Now, in a country which is so diverse, when you talk about elections which have happened simultaneously, it was after independence. But what happened was that once we had elections till 67, but after that, when certain assemblies were dissolved, isn't that going to be repeated again at some point of time? Because these things are bound to happen in a democracy like ours. Our diversity cannot be attacked, and that is what our arguments are.
Yeah. Okay, Niti Jain, respond to what Sujata Paul and other panelists are saying. They are saying that yes, there could be a trust deficit when it comes to one nation, one election, having this policy in such a rushed manner. How do you address these concerns?
So Parikshit, like I said, and I think the amount of how much who is rattled is directly proportional to the kind of speculations that have been coming out from the leaders at the India meet and from the spokespersons sitting at every channel, so to say. So from saying that media dar mein ji raha hai, and the media is feared and the media is closed, to statements like you bringing in agencies in a debate that have nothing to do about the agencies. This is not a new topic. This has been going on. The Prime Minister has spoken about earlier. This is not the first committee that has been set up. There were committees before this as well. And this is a topic that the BJP has been talking about for a very long time. So to say that this was brought up very conveniently to take it away from the India alliance, I think India alliance is doing itself a disfavor enough for us to even get in and do something special about that. The point is that one nation, one vote has a lot more benefits than not benefiting the country as such. And everything that the opposition today is saying is only about creating a fear, the fear of tomorrow, a fear of something new. And they have been very averse to any changes that this government has been trying to bring in for the betterment of this country. So to say कि नहीं नहीं ये तो democracy के खिलाफ है, and all of those statements, these are just blanket statements. Let them come up with a point-by-point rebuttal about why are they opposing a one nation, one vote theory at all. And like the other panelists just listed out the benefits that could happen. And I am not going to speculate कि ये कैसे होगा, EVM कहाँ से आएंगे, how will it happen? That is the job of the government, which is why whatever happens, a committee is being set up. The BJP had organized a lot of webinars and all of those things in the past few years to bring a consensus within the country. So just to speculate and to create a fear in the minds of citizens is not all right.
All right, we're going to take a short break, but we'll request all our guests to stay with us. But when it comes to holding early elections, do we really need a law to be brought into Parliament? Can they do it without bringing the One Nation, One Election bill? We're going to take a break, but when we return, we'll speak about that to all our panelists, and although also the other speculation around the Parliament session. Welcome back. You are watching News Centre. We still have with us Akshayk Rout, former Director General of the Election Commission, Niti Jain of the BJP, Sujata Paul of the Congress Party, Sanjeev Srivastava, senior journalist. Mr. Akshayk Rout, coming to you, do you think even without bringing a bill, the government, via cabinet decision, can announce an early election and maybe just club some states, 3 to 4 states which go to polls in the next few months, that could be clubbed with the general election? Do you think that is a possibility?
Well, I don't think it's greatly possible, though I'm not a constitutional expert. I'm an election manager of some sort. But I don't think it is actually possible. There could be, suo moto, I think, on their own volition, if there are some state assemblies that dissolved and the elections become due within 6 months, then that is one way of preponing or postponing elections. In fact, 1 or 2 elections, perhaps the Jammu and Kashmir elections are being spoken about. A call has to be taken on that. Then we have already 5 elections in front of us. They are ready. And then the national elections, the Lok Sabha elections are coming with another 4 state elections. So there is some margin of postponement and preponement possible. It depends on those who are heading the assemblies in our parliament. In this case, the Lok Sabha, of course, is in the hands of the ruling party. So, but without, I don't want to list off the acts and the provisions of the constitution, and also the various acts which have to be amended duly. Also, as some panelist was very rightly pointing out, we have to preempt future breakage or disruption of houses so that it again takes us back to square one. What gives me a lot of hope about managerially, logistically being possible that let's not forget that when 1951-52 we had the elections starting off, for about 2 decades we had all the elections happening together. Till the time we had disruptions in 1967, then of course a lot during emergency, post-emergency time, when disruptions happened and then everything went helter-skelter. And the Lok Sabha had its amputated tenure in few cases. So that is why it has happened like this. One thing I just want to point out one thing. Unless all of the stakeholder is liberated from political bias, and it is an unbiased and liberal consideration of the issue, whether for or against, that's not the point that I am trying to make. For or against, but there has to be a liberal approach. Like, I am hopeful that there is a consensus on what an election is, what democracy is. If we do not have consensus on this, then going consensually in favor of one election, one nation, one election is going to be difficult. I'll just, before I close on this, I'll point out 2 things.
Right.
Campaigns like this, elections are called festivals of democracy. But I guess for quite some time it has ceased to be a festival. Because if they come too often, are they called festivals? A. B. If we have a lot of sin flowing out of election campaigns like fake news, like we have people talking hate news, hate stories about each other, allegations of all types which hurt each other. So I don't think it's a great democracy festival or democratic drama that we are playing out. So if these are switched to some extent, because these are affecting society beyond elections, even after elections, there is a hangover, there is a lingering bad blood. And then money. Do you know just one figure that the government spent 3,870 crores in 2014? Private estimate that political parties, candidates spend about 30,000 crores. Would we afford to spend this money? So it's a time to think on these things, definitely, for sure.
Okay, there's a time to think about the one nation, one election. But Sanjeev Srivastava, coming to you, we've discussed one nation, one election in some detail. But I would like to ask you about the unfinished agenda of this government. Recently, the Law Commission once again started looking at the Uniform Civil Code. There was also the Women's Reservation Bill that has been pending in Parliament for years now. Do you get a sense that the Prime Minister, as he concludes his 10 years in government, would like to see progress on these issues?
I'm sure he would like to see progress on these issues and many issues. But what really stumps me, and actually I don't have an answer to this, like I was saying earlier, that a 5-day special session in the middle of September, when there'll be a major festival, also Ganesh Chaturthi. So the only reason for calling a special session of the Parliament, the first in 9 years, has to be, keeping in mind this government's approach or any government's approach, has to be political. It comes a few months before the national elections. It comes a few weeks before crucial state assembly elections. So the agenda has to be political, number one. Number two, since a session has been called, the agenda also has to be somewhat legislative. There has to be some bill. Otherwise, the government can announce an executive decision. So what can be those bills? is again a subject of discussion since yesterday. People are talking about UCC and then ruling it out. People are talking about maybe something like a population control bill and then raising issues about it. One nation, one poll. You need a 5-day session. You need I think, a wider consultation process, because this is an idea which is a good idea. We had for nearly 20 years one election, simultaneous elections, and it has been talked about since it was one of the pet subjects of Mr. Advani, if I can recall right. He used to write signed articles in newspapers. They were during his days as Deputy Prime Minister and later. But this idea cannot be forced through or pushed down opposition's throat, not people's throat, because then it can become counterproductive. Then it itself can become an election issue, whether one should have or not. Why is this government doing it?
Okay.
So it really, Mr. Modi is known to pull rabbits out of his hat. I'll be very curious and I'll be waiting, because I cannot guess as to why is this special session being called for, what will be the agenda, what will be happening.
All right. Okay, Sujata Paul, coming to you. The India Alliance has its agenda clear over the next few weeks. Is the Adani-Hindenburg controversy and the nexus that you have been speaking about, the opposition has been speaking about between the Adani group and the government, is this what's going to be the priority for the opposition alliance in the weeks to come?
Absolutely. And this is something that the ruling party has to face. They've been running away from it, and we saw how Rahul Gandhiji's membership was taken away from him. His house was taken away from him only because he mentioned Mr. Adani. Now, if there are reports coming in, and I like the argument that the BJP gives, that these are reports coming from agencies abroad, and this is maligning the Prime Minister. No. I think they should remember that yesterday they went overboard talking about this Pew survey where people outside India were talking about Mr. Modi, how great he is. Well, they need to come and stay here before they, do this kind of voting in such surveys. The fact is that the Adani issue is going to be center stage, but let's make no bones about it, that if the government thinks that we are going to allow them to pass this bill without us being present there, then they're sorely mistaken. They will not be allowed to pass this bill, because hearing a number of people, one more thing that comes to my mind is that not only will 5 articles need to be amended, what will happen is that the basic structure of the constitution will also be on attack, and you cannot allow this. Now, if and there is a particular study which was done by the I.D.I.A Institute in 2015, and they found that there is a 77% chance that voters are going to choose the same winning party if elections are to take simultaneously. So, you might not be voting through the same machine, but obviously the regional issues are going to take a backstage. We are not going to allow that. This is a federal structure, and the federal structure is the basic tenet of the constitution. And
we've completely run out of time. I'll have to end this here. But Niti Jain, Sujata Paul, Sanjeev Srivastav, Akshayk Rout, thank you very much for joining us on this program. We'll continue this conversation in the days to come. But for the moment, it's a wrap on News Center.